Well, they included her, and that's what she's like. Oh, but it's so funny. So she can tell his boss. I'm like, I don't even know.
Way to get answers. They'll start copying bosses on
well liked.
emails.
I'm
No.
getting a feeling he's not well liked.
Sheesh.
No, it's just been a long day.
It's not just us then.
Steve, you always shut the door?
Yeah.
We're a little slow getting started. We have a technical issue going on.
Oops, didn't even slam it.
Yeah.
I'm looking for if anybody, I don't know.
Oh, I see. They're trying to sort something out.
So how was your day?
That was in January though.
Boiler being installed.
Oh,
It
sweet.
was supposed to be done today, and it's not. So
Oh, that sucks.
2 days without a shower isn't gonna work.
Oh,
So we're
no.
scrambling.
No.
Me and the kids, and we had it scheduled to be replaced, and
Oh,
thankfully
okay.
it's that would have been bad.
Yeah.
Terrible.
We had
They're
a
like,
month.
oh, we just got another hour or two. It's like, could you stay longer than 3:30 then? Maybe just button it up or what?
So
The
it's
first
not
apartment that my
good.
wife
No.
had,
Yeah,
when
well,
I lived in Somerville,
Yeah.
Mass, the boiler blew. We were without hot water for a month because it was one of these brick line things, with ceramic tubes and.
Just gonna close my eyes and hope that
That's
doesn't.
when you learn to take really quick
Steve-
showers.
Well, we were boiling, we were heating the water on the stove and then pouring it in the tub and.
Oh, there you go. Take a little bath.
Steve,
Oh,
before you hit
that's
record, could I address the
Oh, sure.
Just want to thank everyone for the thoughts, prayers, the flowers WPCA sent me. Just so you know that on the 24th, my wife passed in her sleep. Wasn't sick, and it was sudden, but it's a good way to go, I guess.
Wow.
Just thank you all for your well thoughts and the cards and whatnot.
Well, we're still thinking of you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Pretty
sorry,
bad.
Toby.
It'll be been on my
It's
mind.
gotta be the hardest thing in the world.
Will continue to be, I think.
You were married for what, 45 years, something like that?
35 and a half.
Wow.
Okay, are we ready?
Yeah, I didn't want that to be on the recording.
Understood.
Okay, good evening. This is the Tuesday, February 7th, 2023 meeting of the Town of South Windsor Water Pollution Control Authority. Do you have what you need to accomplish the roll call?
Yes.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the acceptance of the minutes. I did have one question which I meant to call you about and never got around to it. On page 3, the fourth bullet. What is that trying to say? I'm looking at what?
Where are you?
It says, also looking at a large scale to do a replacement. I don't know, that doesn't seem. Page 3, the VFD replacement.
Page 4, actually.
Oh, page 5, wow.
Oh.
Gotta get new glasses.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Page 5.
I was looking at something, page 3.
Working demolition team. Large scale to do a replacement.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to say, looking at a large scale replacement for VFDs, is that?
That kind
Large scale replacement project or,
Yeah,
okay.
I think we had 15 VFDs that were due for replacement that we're looking to do.
Great, thank you very much. I don't have any other comments on the minutes. Anybody else?
motion to accept the minutes. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes are approved unanimously. For new business, we have a discussion on the assisted living facility sewer use billing. Tony is prepared to talk about the implications of that.
So last meeting, actually I should start with last year, the authority approved billing the commercial residential apartments, 50% of the sewer user rate per unit, or consumption base, whichever is higher. So that was passed last year. This year, we're looking at the assisted living facilities. It came up in the discussion last month, so that was tabled for discussion for this month. And I put together some numbers, and we just started getting in the water bills for this year. So I put into a spreadsheet with the projected additional revenues would be if we did switch to a unit based, a per unit based fee at
This
50.
isn't just assisted living, right? It includes senior living centers and all?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So we have 6 properties that this would affect, a total of 638 units. And if you go through the columns, we have the address, the name of the property, total number of units at each property, and then there's the USG is the US gallons read, the gallons that they discharge for the 2023 billing cycle. The next column is the 23 user fee consumption, and this is what their bills projected to be for this year. Bills are going out very shortly. The next column, the 50% sewer user fee per unit, would be the projected user fee if we went off, if we were billing them per 50% of the user fee per unit. And the last column is the additional revenue that would be generated, which totals just about $22,000 if we went with a 50%, if we started billing 50% per unit. So that's just a brief summary of.
So it looks like we would net an additional almost $22,000
Correct.
By doing that. Now, last time we were looking at very preliminary numbers, there were some facilities that were actually not exceeding the consumption charge. Now, it looks like things have settled in, occupancy is up, and we're now seeing every single one of them would generate at least a little bit of extra revenue, maybe a third increase at Berry Patch 2, a third at Hillcrest, even more than a third there. So anyway, I think ask people what their opinion is about this. Anybody?
What have we done in the past?
Well,
What's our prior history?
the prior history before last year was that apartments, anything that had like a single water meter, which would be like in a commercial apartment development, or one of these large facilities, was billed strictly on their consumption with a minimum of 54,000 gallons or whatever the number is, which of course they exceeded, but it wasn't in proportion to the number of residents. So then we looked at the apartments last year and we said, you know, they're generating a whole lot of wastewater, and we're not really billing them in proportion to what they're generating, unlike what we're doing to the single-family houses. So, but they're also not generating that much, so compared to a single-family house on average. So if you look at the averages, they were roughly half of their consumption of the single-family houses. And that's even after you correct for swimming pools and stuff like that. So we said, well, it's only fair to build the apartments based on the number of units, but we'll set the minimum instead of the same as a single-family house. We set the minimum at half. So what we're talking about here is saying, well, there's some other facilities that have, you know, a number of occupants. All of them.
The commercial you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, the apartments are commercial.
No, okay. No, I'm talking.
Yeah. So when they get the commercial bill, instead of just getting a bill based on a consumption, they get a bill based on the minimum of half single-family assumed flow or their actual consumption, as he said, whichever is greater. Now we're talking about, well, there's some other places where we have a lot of people, shouldn't we be treating them the same? And this is the calculation of what would happen if we treated these people the same. So they'd be billed at 50% of the sewer user fee per unit. It's still a commercial bill, it goes out with commercial bills. The individual units won't get a bill. The management will get the bill, and of course, they'll have to pass the cost on.
Which they will.
Uh,
So what was the original agreement with the management of these facilities?
It's based on consumption right now. That's,
I don't know if it's an agreement, it's, you know, we set the rates and that's the policy.
yeah, and they can come out for the public hearings to, so, for instance, for last year when we did the residential apartments, I sent out, I notified them that there's a public hearing on, taking place that could be affecting their rates, and if they need to make public comment, they're welcome to come out. So that'd be the same scenario here with these facilities.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on why some go up more, a greater percentage than others, like Berry Patch 2? Berry Patch 2 compared to Berry Patch 3. It looks like Berry Patch 3 on a percentage basis goes up a much smaller amount than Berry Patch 2. Is that just,
Could be the number of occupancy or.
Yeah, that,
78 versus 94
That
actually less.
includes the deduction meter.
okay, so these include the deduction meter, but yeah, I think it would be probably the occupancy, if I had to speculate on that.
so they're just using more or less water?
If there's, yeah, if all the units are full versus if they're
Gotcha, yeah,
50% full.
okay.
So Berry Patch 3 is still relatively new. I don't know what their occupancy was over, and this
Okay.
time period really is the last calendar year, right?
So this is the 2022 calendar flow rates that we received for the 23 billing.
So, and we saw some others that were pretty low, kind of creep up here. Once we looked at the last, 2022,
Correct, we had the 21 water records, and one or two of the facilities had opened that year, so it was only a partial year of flow.
Gotcha.
So that's why, yeah, we put these together today, now that the water records are coming in.
Gotcha, because yeah, those to me would be somewhat of a concern. Berry Patch 2, that's a big percentage. If management was expecting a charge of 14,000, they got a bill of almost 20,000 unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where some of the other ones, 41, 43, isn't much smaller percentage, anyways.
I mean, if you look at the 94 units in Bear Patch 2, call it 100, they're getting a $60 increase per unit.
That's a good way of looking at it, too. Yeah.
Are these the only multi-units not built big apartments?
Correct, these are the remaining, remaining facilities that have living quarters that are commercial.
Now, we didn't include Harbor Place, which is more of a memory care and, right? I'm thinking of the one that's.
Yeah, Harbor, friend works at that.
Harper Chase.
Harbor side, something.
They might be apartments. I'll make a note of that to look
Well,
at.
it's not really apartments there, I think it's more,
It is
you
yeah.
know, individual rooms. It's
I get,
not a nursing home, but there is memory care, you know, I think the people, you know, totally different living conditions, and I kind of wouldn't want to lump them into this group myself.
okay.
Harbor Chase.
Harbor Chase, thank you.
What wasn't included was the housing authority apartments.
Yeah.
Because that's a town entity, so we didn't include those.
Okay, now, do we build them?
No,
Why not?
it's a town entity.
They're exempt by law,
Yeah.
by law, state law?
No.
Hmm.
No, we don't build any town facilities.
We have, without a whole lot of serious thought.
That's our
look-
biggest bump in revenue, is the government.
Yeah.
We want to stick it to, let's do that, and not.
I mean, we could in principle build the schools, we could build a town hall, and we all feel like, since they're actually paying off the bonds on our sewer plant upgrade, might not be totally fair, but it does spread that cost around to the people who benefit from the schools. I mean, that's the whole idea. These people benefit from the sewer plant, they ought to pay their fair share, or that's the question, I guess. So this would actually go into our budget discussion. We wouldn't need a motion now, but we kind of need a consensus of whether we want to ask Tony to include this approach in the budget.
So we're at the discussion point.
Oh, yeah.
So
Hold on, I have a quick question, I'm sorry. So the old way of doing it, was this different than how other apartments were being built? Like, were they being treated differently because they were assisted living, or are we just trying to get them on the same plan as the apartments now?
All the commercial buildings were built the same, so we would take their flow, divide it by 74,000 gallons, and calculate the charge with the minimum charge of whatever the sewer user rate was. Like I said, last year, we looked at the residential commercial buildings, and we left these facilities the same, consumption-based. And this year, the discussion item came up to start looking at these to build them on a per-unit base.
Yeah, and again, unlike single-family houses or condos, which are individually metered, they only have one meter for the water, for the whole facility. And they do have ways of separating out the flow that goes into their swimming pool, sprinklers, that's not included in the numbers. So these units are basically operated the same way. Okay.
So you're saying the pool and all that stuff's not in here?
Right. I mean, assuming they've gone to the trouble of installing a diversion meter. Yeah. And the town goes and looks at that every year, right?
We don't do it every year, but we do get reports from them, and yeah, they're responsible to maintain those.
So, Toby, you were ready to start a discussion?
yeah, if I could, I'll stir the pot up a bit, and then because I have diverse feelings. One of which is just when I hear the expression of it'll be this way or that way, whichever is more, I don't think that, in my gut level, that's not fair. It should be whatever's less, not more. So it seems like our motive here to make any changes is how can we raise more revenue, which is not, in essence, a bad thing, but it's not necessarily the right thing either.
Well, I mean,
So, okay,
go ahead.
So I kind of have that mixed feeling. However, to base any rates on usage, well, that makes sense, and that seems fair across the board based on usage. I just don't like the motive to how can we figure out a way to raise more revenue? Because that's happening everywhere to everyone in every aspect of their lives, and everything is going up and up and up and up, and for no apparent reason. It's not like it needs to. It's just because we can. And I realize that the schools and the debt the town creates is we need more revenue. It just doesn't sit right the way we go about that. To me, it doesn't seem fair to the citizens. I think we're supposed to be the mediator between the citizens and the system of the sewer systems, and to try and mitigate that, to minimize to them and maximize to that. And does this serve that purpose? I don't know, but so there's some of my mixed thoughts which might generate some discussion.
Let's go around the table.
Made some good points. Well, I guess that's me. So one thought is, with regard to the point about doing the 50% or the actual whichever is higher, what we're doing here is we're modeling this on a change we made last year, and we accepted that logic a year ago, and I don't recall any discussion about that. maybe no one questioned it last year. But I think it's an interesting point about, should it be, so what was the thought process last year of deciding 50%, or the actual whichever's higher versus whichever's lower?
It was to generate more revenue. The more revenue we generate from the commercial side, that'll lower the overall sewer user rate for the residential side.
Right.
But that does shift more of the burden over to the commercial side, which is a variable income revenue source. The residential side is a fixed income. We have, $425 sewer user rate, and we have 8,600
Houses,
accounts.
it's very set, yes.
So you know what your revenue is.
Very stable.
And that's one reason that we get away with just Heather and myself as kind of the I don't want to take away from the accounting office, but we're kind of the accounting office, and we do the bill, Heather does a lot of the billing,
Yeah,
gets that out to the company, so we can do that. If we went to a full consumption-based, and we're going through all the water records, and we have, with the commercial accounts, we'd have over 9,000 accounts that we'd have to look at, put those records together, get it out to the billing company. You're talking about more staff hours.
You're talking about usage in the single-family houses as
Correct.
an option that we discussed many years ago. I don't know how many people were on board then, Toby, you probably were. And we just decided there were so many variables, and I don't want to get into it, but it was hugely complicated and difficult to do fairly. Just to mention, some of our big water users actually have swimming pools, okay? We have a whole bunch of people who use the sewer but are on wells. And those kind of issues just made it so complicated.
yeah.
We just lived with that method. So this is really, just to answer your question, I think the approach last year was to say, well, let's just ask these people to pay their fair share like the single family people are paying. And we decided that it really wasn't fair to charge them like single family, but it would be fair to charge them mid-half. And I don't know, I think maybe even it was Toby who came up with the 50% idea. But anyway, let's keep going.
It seems reasonable. Apartments are generally smaller, they usually have one bathroom, sometimes two.
The data,
So
the data backed up that.
I don't have a problem with the 50%, that seems like a reasonable cut.
Joe,
So I know last year we had the public hearing and there wasn't much discussion on it. After we made the change, was there people that voiced concerns, like when these apartment managers got
I didn't
their bill?
receive any feedback on it. Bills are going out shortly, so usually when they get the bill, I don't think there's gonna be, as we could see from here, there wasn't too many that were gonna have a sharp increase in the sewer
Yeah,
user fees, so, yeah, that's to be determined at this point,
yeah, okay.
but, yeah.
So I'm actually on the fence because I actually know a resident that lives at Berry Patch, and single woman, she's 87 years old, and, they're obviously on a fixed income. Do they use as much water as an apartment with one bathroom with a family? No, the 50% sounds reasonable. I think I'd probably err to whichever is lower, but I'm just, it's a tough call, like you had mentioned. I remember us trying to figure this out a long time ago, and it was hours of trying to figure it out, and everybody has to pay their fair share, but I'd be really careful about people of that elderly status that are in Berry Patch for a reason, that they are given a little bit of a get out of jail free card a little bit, where I'd err more on the lesser of the two, not the higher end, but the lesser one.
Thing is we're not billing the individuals, it's the corporate entity that is paying the bill.
It's a corporate, but they pay into that, don't they?
Right.
Yeah.
So of course, what the corporate entities do is they don't pay anything, they keep their profit the same, they pass the
Right.
burden on to
them.
But so it gets washed out and it gets muddy, because who's paying what, and
True enough.
Yeah.
It's a tough call. I'm very much on the fence.
Jim?
Toby brought up, instead of more then, it should be less then, maybe put the minimum, and if they're less, they're under, but if they're more, we go to the minimum. That seems fair. Otherwise,
Unlike.
it's almost like a tax law. If it's more than, boop, pay me the money. You know,
Dave?
I mean, I think like everyone said here, it's kind of a tough call. You know, part of me think, you think, well, like, oh, we're just getting more money from them, but at the same time, I also see it as a consistency thing, and maybe we should just be consistent across the board. We're not being discriminatory, so.
in court, they bring, you're the one's gonna go to stand.
What?
Come on.
Somebody fights it, they're gonna go to court.
Oh.
South Windsor didn't look good in the paper today,
Oh,
but
well, we're getting sued.
don't kid yourself.
We're
These
always
are-
getting sued.
Okay. Let's let Dave finish.
Yeah, but these are,
Excuse me,
I
Jim,
know.
let Dave
No,
finish.
but I guess I see it as a consistency issue probably at the end of the day. Maybe we should just be consistent across the board.
Thank you, Bala.
Same thought, like consistency, but I'm also thinking like per unit increase, whether, like, is there any other pricing model, like instead of 50%, it'll be like additional per unit,
So let me,
right? That'll be like consistent 102, you pay additional, whatever the equivalent of that.
so I mean, I think consistency was the whole motivation here. But we have a $5.4 million budget at least being proposed. This is $21,000 or $22,000. It's, I mean, if we have any hesitancy about doing to this particular group of people, all we're getting out of this is another $22,000. So personally, I'm wondering whether it's actually worth it to go through the change. So I think the question for us today, we're not gonna vote on this as a policy, we're gonna instruct Tony to either include this change in his budget calculation, which is probably what pennies on the single-family housing.
Probably like $1.25.
Or not. So I guess, again, I mean, I hear some hesitancy, I hear some argument for consistency, but the net value of this is only $22,000 out of $5.4 million. So I don't know. Do we have any, I mean, do we want to instruct Tony to include this in his budget proposal? We'll still have a chance to debate it, or are we happy with kind of leaving things the way they are?
I'm thinking, I like the consistency factor, that's good, but consistently what? Consistently fair, consistently asking for more. So why don't we hedge towards consistently fair? Well, whenever we can be fair, that's our choice, and that can become kind of a methodology how we approach things, is trying to be fair. And anyone who sits there and listens or reviews or goes through our notes or comes and is present, they can say at the WPCA, they're doing the best, they're fair. That's the consistency is they're fair.
The most consistent fair would be to do these the way we do the apartments. That would be consistent with the apartments, and we thought that was fair, so we might think this is fair. But going around again one more time.
Yeah, if we don't do this, it feels to me like you wanted to start with Toby, sorry. We're going out again.
Well, so if we, I'm okay with that, but let's change the verbiage of, and again, the same as apartments, usage, it seems fair. But let's do, not whichever is more, but whichever is less.
Well, that would be inconsistent with anything we're doing anywhere else.
Yeah.
but this is different than everything else.
No, it's actually very similar to the apartments.
Apartments, but
Yeah, we're doing more,
Yeah, but the
whichever's
houses-
more on the apartments.
yeah,
So if this isn't consistent, then that, if that's not right, then last year we made a mistake.
That would actually be reducing, in effect, well, not reducing, because it would stay the same, basically.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah, my thought, kind of to your point, it's raising an additional 21,000, is it worth kind of the fight? I think maybe a good metric to keep an eye on, to revisit in the future, but at this point, I kind of feel like it just probably isn't worth it.
Same.
Not worth 21 on 5 million, I don't think so.
I was gonna say, put it in the bill and continue to discuss it, but I think I see the way the wind's going, and I'm fine either way.
Yeah, I'm also fine either way, but I just want to make sure that some of the apartment can put an appeal that we all have senior citizens, can we do the other rate, right?
Well, some of the apartments are young families getting started, you know, so it's not just senior citizens, but senior citizens are a class of people we need to be careful with, because they're special people.
So I guess, I think I'm hearing that we'd be happy to not include this in this year's budget calculations. Is that kind of where we're ending up here?
So what you're saying is, this never happened.
That's what it sounded like.
We're gonna ask Tony in another year about the same thing.
Yeah, it's something we can keep an eye on.
Take it out of his salary.
Okay, so let's see,
That
that is
discussion's next month.
item 1A, or C1 on the.
Recording that.
Do you want all these to go in there?
C2 is 24 Amato Drive. Remind us what happened last time around and where we are now.
So, last month I was contacted by Unit L for the condominium. She was displaced by a condominium fire that occurred October 12th. Looking further into it, as a director from the WPCA, there were a total of 4 units, so 3 additional units that were displaced from the same fire. So after being notified of the damage from the Unit L owner, we approved, or the authority approved, refunding a total of $283.33 and remove the owner from the billing list until the building department issued a certificate of occupancy. So that was all approved last month. The authority wanted to see if there were other units, which there were. We had 3 other units that were displaced by that. It was units I, J, and K. And we looked into their, see if their sewer user fees were paid up to date and everybody was current. So to be consistent with that, I would recommend refunding the 3 units, $283.33. Remove them from the sewer user billing list until the building department issues the CO, at which time we can add them back onto the list. Charge any prorated fees.
It seems fair.
So there's a motion drafted if someone wants to.
Motion to approve refunding 24 Amato Drive units I, J, and K, $283.33 in sewer use fees for the month of November 2022 to June 2023, and to remove property from the billing list until the building department issues a certificate of occupancy, at which time this property will be added back to the billing list and billed any applicable probated sewer use fees.
We have a second,
I
second from David Basile. Any other discussion? Paula, Dave, Jim, Vicky, Joe?
I'm good.
Toby. So I will have a little discussion here. I think we're informally setting a policy, which we would probably follow in the future. Someone's house has a fire and can't be occupied, or they get flooded out and they can't live in their house, whatever, we would probably find ourselves thinking about doing the same thing. So this is beginning to move kind of into policy space, which to me is totally fair. But maybe at some point we may want to look at our regulations and deal with this that way. So it doesn't stop us from doing it now, but I kind of think like we're really now twice setting the same precedent here. Happens to be a single fire at a single condo, but this comes up again. Can't imagine we would do anything differently. Any other comments or discussion?
Then how would we handle the commercial side? Say it was a commercial building, a restaurant or something, would we consider doing the same thing? Or I guess maybe that would be based on water consumption anyways.
Yeah, a lot of it, yeah,
Based on
would be
actual,
the water consumption, correct.
So I guess it wouldn't matter.
kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah,
I mean, they would drop down to the minimum, but then we might ask whether we wanna charge the minimum.
Mhm.
I mean, there are a lot of commercial places that are, paying the minimum, you know, these industrial condos, for example. They have maybe one toilet and a sink in a corner somewhere. And,
It's gonna be.
there's a lot of them that are unoccupied, which is a little different. You know, just because they're unoccupied, I don't wanna get into who's occupied and who it isn't, so. The disaster, I can live with, because I think it's the right thing. The usual turnover, buildings not occupied for a time, including apartments for that matter. I don't wanna go there, so just a case of some kind of a disaster would probably,
right.
I'd like to call a vote. A motion was made and seconded.
okay, so we have I think we'll just go by consensus if we're ready to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. All right, we now are ready for the superintendent report.
This wasn't included in the report that I gave to you, excuse me, but I was just following up on a question that Jim had from last meeting. I did send an email to everybody, but just for public record and to follow up and answer any questions for discussion. The question was if we pull bonds for sewers for projects in town, for private projects. The engineering department holds drain layer permit bonds that are pulled by a P1 or a P1 or P7 licensed plumber. The planning department maintains drainage, landscaping, and erosion and sediment bonds for privately owned projects. If it is a public project, we will hold bonds, so if the authority is sponsoring or is paying for a capital project for a sewer expansion, we would hold those bonds. But for private projects, with some of these commercial buildings and even private buildings such as residential subdivisions, these are the type of bonds that the engineering and the planning departments hold. In those same lines, the developers are required to construct everything in accordance with the plans that are submitted and approved through the WPCA and planning departments. The engineering department has an inspector to go out and make sure that everything is built correctly. There are certain tests that we can do, and there's the mandrel test, air pressure test, and if we're ultimately gonna take over the sewer line, we would require a CCTV inspection to give us the baseline data on what the pipe looks like. So I just wanted to put it out there for if anyone had any conversations. I know we can't do that email, but I just did want to put it out there and follow up on your question.
Does anybody have any questions regarding this issue? Thank you, by the way, Tony, for following up on that. Okay, proceed.
So under the general information, we had two operators at the treatment plant, Rob Butler and Mike Wood. They graduated from the Connecticut WIA Wastewater Leadership Program last month. It's a 12-month program, and it's training future leaders in wastewater. The coursework includes attending monthly trainings. It's full-day sessions. They also shadow 8 hours a facility manager. It has to be outside of their facility, so it starts making those networks and those connections. Gives them the opportunity to ask jobs, see how different facilities are run. And they're also required to give a presentation on a topic that's affecting or impacting their facility. So it gives them that opportunity to do public speaking. And both of them volunteered to actually speak in front of a crowd of 75 people at the graduation ceremony, which was the Connecticut WIA Managers Forum. It's an annual event, and it's very difficult to speak in front of 75 people, and they actually really blew me away, and I congratulated both of them. I had feedback from a couple different managers that were there, and very impressive with the way they conducted themselves. So I just wanted to point that out, and we're proud of them. I should also give Jeff a mention. He's actually one of the people that run the leadership program. It's a great program. Actually, both Jeff and I have been through it several years ago. So yeah, it's a great experience. Jeff does a great job with it, and we're very proud of Rob and Mike. The odor control pilot was up and running. We got that installed this month. Vapex odor control was installed on the sludge storage tanks. We'll get into it a little bit more, a couple items down the list here. The first couple weeks we had to work out some of the bugs. We had a frozen water line this past weekend with the frozen air that came through. Since that time we've had some pretty good luck with the way it's been operating. The treatment plant process continues to meet or exceed our NIPD's permit. The staff assisted with the Vapex installation. We took place in some training on how to operate the unit. The staff also rebuilt some internal recycling pumps that they had rebuilt, and they've been installed this month. And they replaced and began building faulty valve assemblies. For the collection systems, 2,655 feet were inspected with the CCTV equipment, and we cleaned 1,800 feet of sewer pipe. New fire alarm panels were installed. Annual maintenance on generators was completed. Grease removal took place at Benedict Drive Pump Station in the wet well. Excuse me. And repairs were made to the jet truck. For the emergency call-outs in December, we had 4 calls at the treatment plant, 4 pump stations, 0 blockages, 1 call before you dig, and 0 odor complaints. Capital improvement projects, the pump station upgrade, there wasn't anything new to report for this month. We're still working on the Pleasant Valley project design, and that again is with the Pleasant Valley Bridge that the town is reconstructing, and that's gonna offset some of the elevation, so working through that at the moment. We are nearing the end of that, fortunately. The aeration wear gates, the bid specs are under review right now. It should be bid in the next couple weeks, so that's a big project that we're looking to get completed this year. For the ARPA projects that we have going on, phase 4 was completed, and we're holding retainage until November. UV disinfection, we're preparing to bid in April. We had a meeting last week with the design engineers. Most of the design is complete at this point. We just have a few things to work on here. And the Clark Street valve installation, that was completed a couple months ago, and we're just still waiting to release the final pay rec. The collector of revenue, she's reporting they utilize the state marshal to serve alias tax warrants, the contacting lenders and monitoring payment plans. This has all increased the revenue. Last month's collections were $66,570.97. The commercial industrial collection rate for the grand list 22 was 99.6%. The total delinquency from 2008 for the commercial accounts is $6,715.63. And on the residential side, this is for grand list 23. The collection rate is 95.7% at this point. And the total outstanding delinquency balances from 2008 are $260,740.25.
Did you give us that in
No.
paper and a handout?
No, we don't have a handout for that.
No,
Motion.
no, she gives me the report at the end of the month,
Yeah.
just so it's up to date and accurate.
I think I'd prefer to see it in writing. It's a little hard to follow when you're going through it verbally, so
Okay.
next time, let's try to have even if you have to bring an
So
extra
I can give
piece of
you
paper.
these
Extra
numbers
piece
for
of-
next month,
Yeah,
so we'll be,
yeah, next month will be fine, yeah.
okay,
Behind.
yeah, whatever it is, yeah, I can do that.
All right.
Do we need a motion to accept director's report?
Second.
Okay, I won't take a vote because, I guess we'll see if there are any questions or comments.
sorry.
But no, the motion's fine, motion's in order. Toby?
Motion to accept the executive director's report?
Oh, okay. A second from Bala. And, we'll open the discussion. Mr. Line?
I don't think I have any questions.
None for me.
So one thing you didn't mention was the status of the carbon filters on the gravity thickener.
Yeah,
Did you
we'll get into that, next item,
Okay,
under the
great.
improvements, but,
Great, yeah.
okay.
Any other discussion? Take a vote, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All
Must be
passes
nice not
unanimously.
getting any odor complaints.
Okay, we're now ready to go into the state bonding update and odor control improvement update. I think I'll merge those two together. It's hard to know when you're talking about one and not the other. But, we've given everybody a handout, right?
Yes. So these letters are the same, they're just addressed to two separate people. One is Governor Lamont and the other is Secretary Beckham.
So we don't need one of each, do we?
And Ethel, you were gonna
I
do
made,
something
I
out
made
for us?
prints, it's
Oh,
the
they
same.
came?
Correct.
Yeah, don't have it,
Actually,
what I print out.
pass this down, thank you. And then
I'll pass those out too.
yeah, this is the draft bond request. The final draft will be prepared by tomorrow, I believe. Should have that out for everyone.
I thought our population was 27,000. Is it really 26?
Right around 26, yeah, maybe a couple hundred over, I think.
He and I have been working together on this so much, either one of us could lead this discussion. Tony, why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure, thank you.
So Chairman Wagner and I have met with Senator Anwar and Representative Khan to discuss the application process and what's gonna be expected and what's needed on our end. Should point out that Representative Delnicki has also given his full endorsement for the application.
Let me just, sorry to interrupt you, but I also had a very long conversation with Representative Delnicki. It was very clear we have bipartisan support for going forward with this.
And it's both from House and Senate, so it's looking good at this point. So we were asked to, or I guess I should say, Steve was asked to draft a letter to the governor and also Secretary Beckham, which was done. We've got the signatures of Mayor Pendleton, Town Manager Maniscalco, and also Chairman Wagner to go along with the bonding request form application. And in addition to that, we've also collected supporting statements from the residents and also some of the business entities, such as the Wood Memorial Library and also the South Windsor Historical Society. I've collected 16 letters of support from the area residents there and property owners. So that's gonna be the package that's gonna be going in. So this form, the request form is in front of you. We've been working to fill this out. Just have a couple small revisions to make, but this is generally what is gonna be submitted by all three legislators to their respective parties and higher ups to start the process on the bond.
There's a separate House bond request form that's almost identical, so we're only giving you one of them, but there actually will be two of these.
And so generally what the money will cover will be, so we've had the discussion, we're essentially breaking the treatment plant into the east and west side. This money will be used to cover the sludge storage tanks, whether we choose Vapex or a carbon unit, and then also to deal with the west side of the facility. The west side of the facility, after we get the storage tanks and the gravity thickeners under control, that's gonna change the airflow dynamics, so we're gonna have to have that re-engineered with a recommended system. So it'll cover that, plus the construction of whatever is recommended. And we're also looking to potentially cover some of the anoxic tanks, because they tend to collect some scum, which could potentially release some odors. So if we do cover those, that's why this ask is 2.6 million. It's with the additional construction that we're looking at.
I just, is it time for discussion? Is that what-
You're finished.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's the general layout, so yeah, I can take questions or.
So
So,
let me
is
just
this
say
a-
there were two
is this a
other
done deal?
pages, there was another page with the actual line items and a picture of the sewer plant.
Yeah, I can, do you want me to send that tomorrow? I don't have it tonight, right here.
Yeah, that's okay,
can-
it's gonna go in with this, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have
So,
that.
go ahead, Tony.
Is this document written in stone? This is completed and done? There's no,
This is the draft copy.
okay. So could we make suggestions?
Believe so, yeah.
For example, on 14, where it says who will benefit from this project and how, the first bullet says residents living in a mile. Now, if I'm looking at this and I don't know South Windsor, I'm thinking about, well, how many residents live within a mile and is it worth it when we want to maximize that? So I would rather just say who will benefit this project. All the citizens of South Windsor will benefit. Maybe some more directly than indirectly, but we're all going to benefit. And I think that's how we need to pitch it to whoever the audience of this is. And then we can say more specifically, those who are in that immediate community are the the Wood Memorial Library and the Indian thing, and then the notable historical residents in the communities there that have a historical base in South Windsor. Because that would maximize, whoa, okay, does that make sense?
Mhm.
So how do,
I have a
give me a sentence to put in if you're,
Well,
let him finish, okay?
okay.
My thought, because the way it's read right now, it's going to be, it minimizes it, and I don't want politicians trying to minimize us. I'd rather have them think, whoa, okay,
Okay, so give me a bullet. I'm thinking that you're asking for a bullet in front of these three, because these three still apply, right?
Yes. Well, I imagine the same people who authored this can just be given the idea of that, and they can reconstructable. I can think about it, but
You're looking at them, but I'm not quite sure what
I'm
you're
on the
asking
spot.
for.
So would everyone agree that improvement or non-improvement of this facility would affect the whole town?
Of course.
I feel that overinflates it. You gotta be careful too, a little bit. Yes and no, but I do agree that you need to change the language to make it seem more relevant, more of an important thing than just a mile. I agree with that. I just be careful with overinflating.
Not overselling it.
Yeah.
Noted.
Maybe residents living.
Oh, he was next.
All right,
There's industries on Route 5, and so there's more things to mention. So who will benefit from this project and how? Well, the whole town will benefit. Well, how? Well, that's more, we can say the whole town, but most specifically, those within, I don't know if we want to pick a mile radius or more broader, but if you went to a map, you drew a mile around that area, you'd say, wow, there's a lot more stuff here than we thought of, and we need to point some of that out.
So I'm gonna go around the table, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Lyons.
I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, I think to your point, it is a good idea to show that it's not in the middle of nowhere. The plant is in a central area of the town and it's gonna benefit a large population or part of the town.
I would reference air quality as part of your argument with that, in reference maybe to residents that way, improvement of air quality for the town, because your air is obviously having issues with the stench, chemical reactions happening.
But that hydrogen sulfide is more than just a bad odor, right?
Yes.
Okay. We're spending $2.6 million on two organizations that are part-time, Wood Memorial Library and the NOASH. They don't even meet, they don't even have a full work week. They're all part-time. We're spending $2.6 million on it. What Toby said is, who's gonna benefit? This is a select group of people. I live over there, trust me. That's a select group of people. Thanks for the money, but, you know, what he says, I think is very right. It's more than just one area. And it's two part-time. That means the Boy Scouts meet more than Wood Memorial Library.
Not to mention, Parks and
No
Rec
action.
is gonna be building a camp over there.
Pardon?
We're building a camp over there.
Yeah.
Down, you know that water area down past, on the right side, it's on, I forgot the name of it.
Down Vibert Road,
Trevor Road?
Vibert Road, whatever. Or are you talking about up by, the old ferry crossing, Ferry Lane?
No. There's almost an unknown pond back there.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you hike back there, you don't know it there. It's covered with overgrowth, there's poison ivy everywhere, but it's a beautiful setting that you can set up some things and have a nice camp out. So that's what's,
That's private property, though.
there's,
No, I know the family put it in years ago. That didn't happen by
the
mistake.
part I'm talking about is town-owned
Oh,
and Parks and Rec.
not on
So-
Vibert Road. I don't think it's on Vibert Road.
I'm not saying the road.
Oh.
It's down Old Main Street, or on the right side past,
I know where you're, I can't
I-
pinpoint,
by
I
the
know what you're
brook?
talking
By
about.
the
Right.
brook?
I'm not gonna get it right, so I don't remember, I can do it, my
So we got a
apologies.
future,
But there's things going on, and not to mention, we've always wanted to, improve the park down at the end of your road. Right down there.
Boat
that-
launch, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
future park development, along the river. And, near, XYZ Pond, where a campground is going in.
People do hike in down there as well.
Sure, I've even tried to ride my bike. The first time I had cleats, I got my bike ended up in some mud. I completely lost forward momentum and fell over sideways in the mud. Didn't get out of my cleats. Like Joe Biden, you know, when he fell, the same thing. All right, well, so I think we're talking about adding some bullets, which I think help strengthen the case. I'm a little, I mean, I live up on Tumblebrook Drive, and, you know, I mean, I'm glad that the town is taking care of this problem, but it doesn't really affect my life like it affects these people's lives. Okay, so I guess I'd be careful about the whole town, but I like adding some of these other things that.
so I think a question we should be asking ourselves routinely is, what's best for my neighbor, what's best for my community, what's best for the next generation, instead of it doesn't affect me. The fact of the matter is you know, it's a couple hundred people at best, really, compared to 26,000. So what we're going to do that? That's, but in the long term, in the big picture, what's best for my community? What's best for the neighbors? What's best for those families?
Well, I mean, I agree with that 100%, okay? I mean, if you're putting your poop into the sewer system, you're responsible for the impact that has on the people at the other end of the pipe, okay? And to me, that's my responsibility there. That's why I'm on this commission, you know? So, yeah, I kind of interrupted the flow of thought. Did we get to your comment?
Well, I mean, I just mentioned two groups that are benefiting, but not the, as Toby said, instead of two groups that don't really meet full-time, we're taking care of us. It's like, I live there, trust me, I've been there more than you have.
Yeah.
Believe me, I know every stone there.
Yeah.
I went to grammar school right next to it, so believe me, I know the area. Trust me. Doesn't, what he said is, it makes sense, it affects, you know, it should be for more than this select group.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we should make mention somehow that it's like it's basically considered the historical district
Yeah, but it's not.
of South Windsor, isn't it?
not,
Or not really?
Technically not the it's historical, but not the historical district.
Yeah, trust me, this was a hassle a few years ago, believe me, I was,
It's kind of an historical area. I mean, I would think a lot
Yeah.
of people, there's a lot of history on that street. And, you know, that was like, I don't know, just thinking out loud, you know, that was like old South Windsor back in the day. You know, that was South Windsor, that street, you know?
that's when the town was a one-horse town, so.
Yeah.
Trust.
So our audience of this, we need to address the audience, right? So the historical aspect is the nice if our audience is the student body and the people residents, but these are politicians and these are people dealing with budget monies and they have the authority to give us a grant. So we need to speak to them in a specific way that pushes their buttons. And they probably don't care a lot about the Bissell Ferry and stuff like that.
No.
Maybe you could throw in Jonathan Edwards.
To add to that, maybe Hartford Marathon somehow include in that.
No, that's right. They went
Oh,
there,
Actually,
I hate
that's
that going
very
by.
That's right, they go up there, don't they?
I hated going down the street.
I do have a doubt. I don't know whether a long day at work or.
It says-
I think they've actually had odor
else.
issues, excuse me.
Yeah.
They've actually had odor issues, during the marathon, at least 1 year, yeah.
Oh, really?
That's a good one to
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah, it's a good point to
So-
bring that up.
This says bond request, but it doesn't mention or have a thing how it's going to be repaid.
Okay, that,
Okay.
this, for South Windsor's point of view, this is a grant,
Okay.
all right? The state bonds a number of things every year, a number of projects. This would be a bond that the state takes on as part of its bonding budget. But for us, it looks like a grant. Okay, we don't have to pay that bond off. We, as state taxpayers, pay it off.
We like grants.
But we'd be competing with other people in other towns who would like to have help from the state that would also be funded. So we're trying to make our thing rise to the top enough to get funded.
Okay.
So, but it'll be a bond that the state takes on as part of their annual bonding effort.
So in that case, then probably add some kind of a duration aspect, like it's been there for so many years, this problem has been there. This will kind of solve that.
Yeah, I think we've tried to make, I mean, regardless of what I actually said, we tried to make it look like this is a problem that's cropped up and we're now addressing it now. It's cropped up as a population has grown. It probably was a problem right when the plant was rebuilt.
Yeah, and it was addressed, it was a known issue with the plant upgrade in 2012, but now it's a recurring issue at this point.
Yeah, somehow need to add
So
that.
So it's gotten worse as the load on the facility has increased.
Population's gone.
According to Dr. Carter, we are the fastest growing municipality in the state. And if her facts are right, and she probably does validate that pretty well, then that's a reasonable thing to mention for the state, because they've got to look at those communities that are growing it and support them.
And we could mention increased school population is also added to the demand.
And don't forget Vicky, she wants.
You know what's ironic is probably half of the people, more than half of the people affected by this are not on the sewer system.
Yeah.
Not enough.
So keywords are gonna be human health, restoration, air quality. So for our residents, restoration of air quality for the betterment of human health. There's people that have sensitivity to smells beyond just you and me going, oh, this smells terrible. And I think if you're talking about, I mean, you're talking about specifics, wood more reliable, blah, 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 blah. I think you're gonna have to throw in some of the terms that will go beyond that. In regards to when you bring in human health and the environment and anything, it's always those key terms that go, oh, hold the phone, you know what I mean.
I love those words, and I got restoration of air quality and somewhere in there, so give it to me slower.
Resident, well, it says who will benefit from this project and how, so our residents or South Windsor residents, and the restoration of air quality for the betterment of human health. Something like that.
I dropped a mile anyway.
Something in regard, human health and the environment is so, like,
The flag and all that stuff.
it's a flag, so they'll just look at it and go, okay. I don't know if they care about Wood Memorial Library, I don't know if they care about that. I think when you start throwing in those kind of terms. Sure.
Everybody have a good night.
Thanks,
You
Jeff.
too,
Take
Jeff.
care. Thank you all.
Good luck with that.
Thank you. Maybe tomorrow I'll have hot water. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
So I guess that's what I would do. If you're telling me that this is gonna be in a pile of others going for grant money, you're gonna need terms like that. I mean, I can start looking on the computer and looking at some of my stuff and pull out some great terms for you, but I don't know if I don't wanna oversell it either.
Well, you want the money, you gotta sell it.
Yeah, true enough. But I don't know, that's just my opinion.
I mean, it's not these guys' money, it's taxpayers' money, so.
Right, true enough.
You gotta curry their favor, whatever gets to their head, you wanna get to their head.
Because you really, and this, I guess I'm going back a little bit with what I was saying when Toby brought it up, but I think they're going to look at this and say, oh, you got Wood Memorial Library, you got this, but you got this big town, so is this really worth our time? But when you start throwing that air quality stuff in there, that's huge.
Yeah.
I don't wanna be downwind of this stuff, I'm kind of in your area, I will probably never smell it, but I'm thinking, my daughter who is sensitive to smells, I can't wear perfume with her, if we lived next door to that, we would have to move.
I mean, I'm the kind of person who drives around Yankee Candle so I don't get within the smell of it, okay?
Some people break out actually with
Excuse me.
with sensitivity.
So I think we'll definitely put that in.
Sorry to put more work in your place, but thank you for doing all this.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to do the work. I mean, it's very rewarding, actually. If we get this grant, it'll be very rewarding. And I love some of the comments we picked up here. Those are future park and rec activities. You're on park and rec?
Yeah.
And I love the restoration of air quality for the betterment of human health.
That's the whole, that's the key one.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the residents, you know, I've actually, been by there on my bike and experienced this thing myself. And I gotta tell you, I wouldn't wanna be having a picnic with that going on, okay? So, I mean, we all, I
Hey,
think.
20 years ago, you'd have taken a ride down on a bike, see how it smelled. Trust me.
Yeah, so I would, I think the other side is, we're gonna have to do something. You know, if we don't get this money, we're gonna have to do something. Maybe hit the higher, we've already hit one of the high spaces. We'll have to spend some of this money out of our own budget to get the big hitter, you know. Maybe take care of the sludge tank, I don't know what, will be the third place.
Yeah, we'd have to take a phased-in approach, but the challenge there would be our sewer pipes, which a lot of our focus and attention has been on with our capital improvement project budget line, so, yes, it would certainly have to be a phased-in approach, but I think getting this low-hanging fruit with the gravity thickeners and sludge storage is gonna make a big impact, and then we can start addressing the west side of the facility.
So, you know, I'm actually gonna be, I've been invited to talk about this issue in front of the town council on February 21st. So I'll have some more ammo.
Can I throw in another one?
Sure.
So if you think about it, in that area, the property values will go down. I'm not buying a house with that there. So your property values are going to be suffering, which will drive people to not be interested in our town anymore, at least in that area. So that, there's better terminology, but something in referencing about property values and maintaining the status of our town and
Right, you could just
know,
say
something like
affects
that.
property values, yeah.
Well, it's
Something like
probably
that.
already affected property values. That's what it
Well, yeah, as some of the residents have told us when they came to
Yeah.
present themselves.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, we got a little more work to do. I'll be working with you tomorrow. I think our goal is still to send this out tomorrow, with, some of these changes. And,
I just think it shouldn't be so. And she said, what Vicky said, you have to be more, everyone instead of the specific.
okay. You were also gonna talk about the carbon system?
Yeah, did you wanna move on in the agenda
Well,
with the odor control update, or?
yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Who decides this in the governance office?
Well, there is,
We're not going to,
okay, there are bond committees and budget committees in each, well, actually, the committees are
trust me,
joint.
one guy has to make the call, believe me.
So what happens is the legislature will try to do things. The governor puts together a budget with help from, among other people, Mr. Beckham. So you really have to go at it from all directions. You know, the Senate isn't gonna wanna try to fight for it, the legislature's not gonna fight for it, unless they have their input. But on the other hand, we want the governor, cause in the end, he will decide whether or not to put this in the budget. And he will come back to them and say, this is what I want in my budget. Okay, so it's everybody. We gotta get everybody on board.
Again, another one. Okay, improving quality of life for our town residents. Smoking over here.
Yourself,
Fire tonight.
What else do you need me to sell?
Quality of life, that's great.
Making things
Almost
healthier for our newborns.
Restoring quality of life for our residents.
To retain it. Okay.
Well, I mean, they've got it's real, it's a real problem. Okay, now go on.
Alright, so is that closed out?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, so with the gravity thickeners, the odor control improvements that we're making, right now, we have a pure air carbon system that's gonna treat the gravity thickeners, and at this point, we have the base pads poured, which were concrete next to the tanks. We're still waiting on the pure air systems to be delivered. We're hoping to have those by March, operating by March. So they should be in hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. There's not much to install at this point. We just have to put the units in. All the preparation for that has been done up to this point, and we're just waiting for the units. The sludge storage tanks, as I mentioned, we had the Vapex trial system operating. We had some challenges early on. We finally got the dosage right. We had to seal up some cracks on some of the hatch doors. There's just some untreated air escaping, so that generated a couple complaints or reports from the residents. And we did reach out to them, let them know that the trial is taking place, and if they detect anything, let us know. So we fixed that. We had that running fine, and then we had the cold snap of what were we, -9 or 10 overnight. One of the lines froze with those temperatures. That has since been fixed, thawed out. So that was done. But I guess to kind of curb that worry in the future, if we do go with the VAPEX system, we do have a pump gallery that we would put that in. So it'd be protected from the elements, it'd be climate controlled. So it really wouldn't be a challenge moving forward with that, with lines freezing and that sort of thing. We would have to make improvements to the hatch doors and just sealing around, because right now we really just kind of put almost like a duct tape around it with some rubber and stuff. So it's a temporary patch at this point. If we did go with the VAPEX system, then it would obviously be a little more professional, a little more appealing and effective.
Tony, the rough cost of the VAPEX system?
It's about $180,000, yeah, for the unit.
Plus-
Sorry to interrupt.
What else? I mean, to actually get it in our system, make all the changes.
Right, yeah, that would just be for the sludge storage tanks, and then we'd have to do, the further improvements with that as well. So at this point, we have disconnected the sludge storage tanks from the biofilter. We do have the ability, if there are issues, to put the biofilter back on or reattach it to the biofilter air system. So we are running it disconnected from the biofilter, and we're running the mixers 24 hours a day now. We're just applying as much pressure as we can to it, kick up as many odors as we can, and we're still taking our readings, and the readings have been favorable. Everything's been looking good at this point. Now we have everything under control. And then I was just going to mention the state bonding application, which we had a discussion about prior. So everything seems to be moving forward. It seems like we're getting some traction, and things at this point are looking good. So.
Yeah, I don't know if I was like pleasantly surprised to find out that we literally disconnect the sludge storage tanks from the biofilter with this method. I think Tony and I were both initially thinking that would be a great way to, use the biofilter as a
polishing unit,
polishing
secondary
or something.
treatment.
And the VAPEX people came in and told you basically the whole system works better if you don't pump the air out of there. So there's a small air discharge at the top of the sludge storage tank, but that air apparently is coming out odor-free.
Correct.
I think you've asked for them, because they had so many issues at the beginning, we've asked them to extend the trial just to be really sure that the thing is working.
Right, we're waiting to hear back because we had issues in the first week and a half to 2 weeks, so we're looking to see if we can extend it another couple weeks and see what they come back with.
I mean, we're talking about buying this system from them, and we want to be really sure it's going to work for us.
Who else uses it?
There's a facility in Southington that we visited. They had a similar unit with a much bigger tank. It was very effective.
Worked?
Yeah. I was very impressed with it. So yeah, after these hiccups that we got through,
the guy selling it's always gonna be the best in the world, so, nice try, but
yeah,
you gotta check somewhere, see who
Yeah.
else is using it.
So they did give us a couple of facilities that were using it, and Southington happened to be one of the closer ones, so.
I am Bond actually recommended it in that engineering report. So that's also.
There's usually a relationship there, but guys that recommend stuff. I know it sounds negative, but
You're right, there's a reason.
Due
I
diligence.
had here, I saw a lot of things going on.
Due diligence, right?
Whenever it's state money or government, believe me, you wanna know.
Is this the first time biofilter you disconnected or?
Yeah. So there's a couple times we had to reattach it, just to get some treatment out of there, like in the first couple weeks. We knew we were having issues and it wasn't, untreated air was escaping. We just, we just reconnected until a rep came out and was able to diagnose what the issues were. Since then, we've disconnected, and then when the line froze up last week, we just had the staff reconnect it. It's literally just slipping a piece of rubber between two flanges, and that's what we're doing. So it's a quick and easy fix.
So once the trial's over, they just gonna come and grab the machines even if we're gonna go forward?
Yeah, there's a lot of lines and hoses and that sort of stuff. There's some nozzles but yeah, they'll clean that up. We have the shipping container, so yeah, it'll all be packaged up and sent off to the next.
Yeah, everything is just sort of scattered around on top of the
Just the
storage tank right
It's
now.
not beautiful by any stretch of imagination, but
Wish I had a
it's
tour
temporary.
Okay. All right, anything else under item D that you want to hear about? Thank everybody for your input on that. There's no public here, so we have no public participation. Bills, change orders, and disbursements.
Yes, we have two refund requests from the collector of revenue. This is totaling $332.46. And there's a memo from the collector along with the refund amounts.
I'd like to make a motion to approve two refunds of overpaid sewer use payments as presented.
Second from David Basile. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, passes unanimously. All right.
For the budget, we are continuing to receive project and equipment estimates. I actually just received one yesterday. So that'll be included with next month's budget. That was a quote for $13,000 for a security camera upgrade. What was revised in this budget from last month was an additional $84,000 for automated security gates at the treatment plant. This is a quote we've been waiting for. We've had a couple scenarios with people driving through the facility. Nobody really knew who they were, didn't know who they were. In this day and age, you can't take things too lightly. One person looked like they were lost and they just kind of took a tour around and then left. There was someone else that was a little, I don't know, it was hard to tell.
One of them might have been me. I did that once.
Was that you? So,
well, I wanted to look at the biofilter from a different angle. You know?
Okay, yeah, so.
Steve.
The gate was open.
You can stop and say hi.
The perpetrator is identified.
We have had a couple people come through the facility and do drive-bys without stopping at the office to check in. Right now, we just have gates that they're just standard chain link gates that open and close manually. So we're looking to get automated gates, and that'll have like a passcode, and that'll allow the truck drivers to come in, our staff to come in. Anyone else who would want to enter the facility would have to check in at the office. So these are just some of the security upgrades that we've been planning to make. Also, this budget includes the projected revenues for next year.
Minus the 21,000 we just took away from you.
I didn't include that yet.
Oh, good, okay.
Foresight.
Nice.
And let's see, yeah, so I'll continue to revise those. A lot of the impacts are gonna be based on different projects that are coming in. So I've been talking with the planning office, which I do often, just to keep an eye on any projects that may be coming up next year that would impact the revenues that we have. And lastly, we have the WPCA budget, which remained unchanged. from last month's budget at $3,200, and that's just the authority's operating budget.
The authority has an operating budget? You haven't taken us to dinner or anything, nothing?
If
You
you
got a
can
sign?
find dinner in here, I'll take you.
Yeah. Oh, you can't take us, what's going on? How you guys run a business? Holy God.
You know, it's interesting, like planning and zoning, the town would take us to dinner every year. Pretty nice dinner, actually. And that stopped, which is appropriate in my opinion. So we just went and paid for our own dinner, all the people who wanted to go. So we went to Lena's and had a nice dinner.
Nice.
Did you
Each
go to
of us.
Wendy's
Huh? If anybody would like to go to
Double
dinner,
shake.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
well, a motion to adjourn is not subject to discussion. Any second on that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.